All right, good evening and welcome. Today is November 21st, 2022. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the school committee. Call the meeting to order 6 p.m. Meeting is being both audio and videotaped this evening. I would ask that everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Start with a roll call. Sam, please.
Jennifer Velasquez, Secretary.
Heather Brown, Director of Curriculum.
Sarah Trulio.
Gordon Smith, Superintendent of Schools.
Gregory Thompson.
Elizabeth Marcian Boucher.
Amy Delenta.
Molly Riley.
Okay, thank you all. We have our first agenda item. We have minutes for approval. I would entertain a motion.
Move to approve the regular session meeting minutes from November 7th, 2022.
Motion made by Sarah,
Second.
second by Amy. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 I have to abstain. I wasn't here.
Those opposed, so three, did you vote aye? 3 ayes, 0 nays, and 1 abstention. Okay, excellent. Thank you all. Committee and subcommittee communications. Sarah, would you like to start us out?
Sure. Over the past few weeks, I was able to participate in the educational planning subcommittee as part of the work along the MSBA. Heather was there as well, as well as members of Jones Whitsitt and Skanska and other members of the team. So it was great to start to think about the educational programming as we move forward. I was also able to attend the event at the high school where the tours occurred. And there's a lot of great questions, in particular around athletic fields and how we can continue to improve upon what is in the plans and how we can make that even stronger. And then I was also able to attend the collaborative meeting where we spoke at length about beginnings of the conversation for the calendar for next year. And I think those are the 3 big ones.
How's the calendar look?
Good.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Working on it.
Good. Beth.
Not much, same as I went to the last building committee event that we had, which I think was well attended. I actually was happy with the amount of people we had. We had a nice group of people that went on the tour. I had gone on that beforehand. Which I think was good. I said this was an opportunity for some folks who hadn't gone through it before. So
Mr. Page leads an excellent tour.
he left an excellent tour indeed. That's really about it.
Great, thank you. Amy.
Nothing additional. Thank you.
Molly.
I believe the only new thing here, we have the National Honor Society induction tomorrow night at the high school, but
Great.
7 or 6?
6.
6 p.m. Awesome. If
And
I arrived at 7, I would be late.
Thanksgiving football game is Long Meadow this year, right?
That's right, at Long Meadow.
Okay.
They're ready to roll as far as they know. Spartan Nation's ready to go. Am I right, Mr. Page? Okay.
Okay, thank you all.
Parties all day long.
Okay, we have an opportunity for visitors to address the committee. If there's anyone this evening who would like, yeah, please come up.
Hi.
You could just tell us your name and address if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Tara Spence. I live at 38 Donald Avenue here in East Longmeadow. I've got 2 kids in school here, one at Maple Shade and one at Birchland Park. And I came tonight to ask the committee some questions just as you're starting to think about the calendar for next year, some concerns that I have as a parent and as an educator myself that have been difficult for our family. One is the half days. The half days are hard as a parent and as an educator, especially for younger kids. So we're not from East Longmeadow. I don't have, grandparents or an aunt and uncle or a cousin, older cousin to watch my kids when they have those half days, which means that either myself or my husband have to take the day off from work. Sometimes a whole day, depending upon, for the little kids, they get out at like 10:30, so I have to basically take off a whole day of work. And we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 half days just in this semester. A few more coming up. We've only had 2 so far, I guess. But I just would ask the committee to be a little bit more purposeful in planning those half days and maybe thinking about the impact of the half days on our families. I don't have the data to answer this question, but I do wonder how great the ADA is for like this Wednesday and the Friday before Christmas break. If students are actually in school those 2 days, is it even worth counting those as half days? I don't have the data for that, so I don't know. You guys would have better answers for that. But kind of along with that, several of the half days are supposed to be for parent teacher conferences, right? So there are 2 in the fall that are really close together, right? And then there's one in the spring, but the one in the spring is only for pre-K through 2. So I guess my question as a parent and as an educator is like, what's the purpose of those parent teacher conferences? Because if they're so close together in the fall from October to December, if you're meeting with the same parents, I don't know if, 5 weeks is enough time to really see any changes and be able to have kind of a follow-up conversation. And then nothing happens again in the spring. So from December to June, there's no chance for follow-up unless you schedule individual meetings on your own. And I think that's a lot to ask of parents is to reach out and say like, hey, can I have a meeting, with you? And it's certainly a possibility, but I think if the goal of those meetings, those parent-teacher conferences, is to create a relationship between the educator and the families, that only having those 2 opportunities in the fall and then nothing to follow up in the spring doesn't make any sense to me. I've worked in very large school districts where those parent-teacher conferences are K through 12. It's not just an elementary school. Like what happens when they get to 6th grade? We suddenly don't need parent conferences anymore. I don't know. I think those are questions maybe worth talking about as a school committee as you kind of reflect on what the calendar should be like for next year. And I know there's some restrictions in terms of teacher contracts and things like that would have to be taken into consideration. But if our district, according to the state, is 40% high needs, what are we doing to meet the needs of those, those 40%? There's no way you can meet with all of those parents in half a day, especially if they're working parents and maybe have trouble scheduling a time during that half day to meet with their teacher. My kids aren't high needs, so we don't get a parent conference unless we reach out and specifically ask for one. And to me, that's not equitable. Just because my kids aren't high needs doesn't mean that I shouldn't have a voice in what's happening in my kids' education. And I feel like I don't have one right now, which is really frustrating. So those are some of the things that I have been frustrated with as we've been in the school district for the last few years. As kind of a tag along to that, I did notice on the school's website that there's a diversity and equity steering committee, but I can't find any evidence that committee has met in the last few years. So I was just wondering, is that committee, does it still exist? When does it meet? And can I apply if it is still in existence? Because I couldn't find any evidence that it exists. So.
Okay,
To answer.
you want to start with the second one?
Diversity, yeah, sure. So the diversity and equity steering committee does exist. It has not met in a while. It's been more subcommittees of it that have been meeting over the last couple of years with COVID.
Right.
However, we'll probably get into it as we present our SMART goals this evening, that's something that we would like to reestablish. And yes, you certainly can apply. Did you want me to go on the calendar?
You want it or you want me?
I mean, I know this is not like a Q&A time, so.
No, it's not, but I'm willing to entertain it a little bit because
Okay.
it's important. And we've had the discussion at our level multiple times. This committee has made a continuous effort to cut back on the half days because we realize both the impact on families and their schedule, but also the disruption in learning. However, you hit it right on the head that contractually, we do have professional development days we'd like to get into the schedule. We do have parent teacher conference days. The first and the second, I would say, traditionally you get one or the other, so it wouldn't be one and then the second. And then so you asked about having more though, to have more. So I know that teachers meet with parents outside of those days because they can't meet with all of them all the time. So I would say that.
That's less structured.
Yeah.
Less formal.
It is.
So we realize there's a lot of half days. We don't have an easy answer for it because we're trying to meet all that professional development,
Of course.
trying to meet those parent teacher conferences. And we have only so many days in the calendar.
So I just would like the committee then to consider maybe other ways of structuring those conferences. Because I think other districts do a very good job of making that more accessible to all families and not just a narrow subgroup of the families. I know, for instance, my daughter's in 5th grade this year, and the 5th grade team met with 5 parents. 5 at the last half day. And to me, that doesn't make any sense. If you have 100 students in the 5th grade and they met with 5 of them, then what's the point of having that half day set aside for parent conferences? So is there a way that we can devote a full day or like sometime in the afternoon and the evening? And again, I know that gets into the teacher contracts and that would have to be discussed in a larger setting, but I just think it's worth kind of reflecting whether the current conference structure is working, because to me, it doesn't seem to be working just from a parent's point of view. And I don't know about that from the teacher's point of view, but I think there are some other ways that maybe we could do it better.
Appreciate your points, and certainly we'll continue to work on it. As Sarah mentioned, we continue to work on it every year.
Yep.
And contractually we'll look at it too. So thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, there is anybody else? We will move forward. We have the SMART goals tonight.
We have the entire leadership team here. I invite them up as we get ready to present. I know that you're not going to all fit into those 5 chairs that are across, but maybe we'll behind as well as you can. They have the 5 principals in the chairs across there, and then we'll fill in the gaps. Assistant principals maybe move up a little bit. Mr. Fredette, why don't you pop into one of those chairs as well? Take that.
Connor, come on in.
Right.
Thanks, everybody, for coming tonight. Good to have everyone in person. Nice to see everybody.
Think we're ready? Everybody comfortable? Seat belts on?
Yeah.
All right. All right, well. Chair, if you're ready, we'll.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yep.
So we want to tonight present sort of the final draft, if you will, but obviously there's always revisions that we can make as we go through the year of our SMART goals. And then obviously we have our full leadership team here, and what they'll be doing is presenting how each level is connecting to the SMART goals and how we hope to move each of those goals forward as we go through. So you'll hear from everybody tonight. Got a decent graphic of last year's graduation. And now we're moving on to the next slide. Thank you, Ms. Brown. Just quick in our definition of what a SMART goal is, as you all know, these are goals that hopefully are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, timely, and something that I always say, even though it's not up there in the acronym, is that we want to make sure every student's reflected as you think about these goals. What are we doing for all students, which actually our presenter earlier was making us think of equity. And so as we think about the calendar, and that's important, and we'll be talking about that as we go all the way through. So I won't read through the district mission and theory of action, but basically know that we're looking to make sure that we put all students in the best possible situation to grow and leave here with the ability to take on the challenges of tomorrow. All right, that brings us to the first goal. I will slow down just a little bit on this, obviously. And I shouldn't say first goal, because if you remember, we're in basically a continuum. We just go around that circle. They all work off each other. And this one is looking at the whole child. And simply put, as you read through some of the bold print and then into the red, the key to this goal is that we're looking at making sure at every level of the district that we're providing students with structured opportunities to develop the knowledge and the skills, not just academically, but academically, socially, and emotionally, and grow as they come through, hopefully with us pre-K to 12 or K-12. And as they leave us, they're ready to become culturally proficient citizens and contribute in a positive way to not only our community, but communities across Massachusetts and possibly the nation and the world. That's the goal. It aligns obviously with DESE's accelerated roadmap, something we talked about last year as we were coming out of the 2 years that really were influenced the most by the pandemic. And we continue the pandemic, although maybe has left us somewhat, it continues to, we continue to feel some of the results of that pandemic and remote learning and so forth. And so this goal is looking at all of that. So some of the end of the year benchmarks that we hope to see is that the surveys that we're doing throughout the year, we're seeing students respond at a 90% or higher rate that they're feeling positively about their own well-being and how they interact at school. That 80% of our students also are feeling that their classrooms and learning communities are supportive and engaging. That was, if you remember on the data presentation, that was an interesting number as we start to break that down. So we want to see that move higher, and we'll break that down not only at the mid-cycle presentation, but again at the end of the year, taking a look at that. That staff, this is a community, so that our staff is also feeling, we want to see 95% or higher reporting that they're feeling supported, that they're feeling they're connected with their schools and they have someone to go to. 80% of our staff will report that there's been effective use of the collaborative time, which we continue to try to structure and make efficient for them. And that people are here. Simply put, people are here, staff and students, so that our district absenteeism goes below that 3% mark. Obviously, last year, COVID knocked that around quite a bit because people were mandated to be out the full 10 days. Now we're still following a protocol of 5 days out, which could knock that number around a little bit, but we're trying to track that as well as we can, working in partnership with our families to make sure that when a child's out, we know, especially if there's consecutive 5 days of consecutive absence, we know what's going on and we can put any support that may be needed in place. So that's the first or goal that we're starting with as we talk about the whole child. And just going through some of the action plans, and this goes to some of the things we were talking about in the community visitation, that we have back from 2019, 2020, we have an equity audit report that's been guiding a lot of our work, not only in the whole child, but as we look at academic, as we look at instructional practices. That report has been guiding, and the recommendations have been guiding a lot of what we do. And obviously the survey learning data and the professional development is something that continues to support the work we do. But it's coming from that equity audit report that was finished back in 2020, just as we were shutting down, which was ironic, as we're getting what I think is probably one of the most pivotal reports we've received in a while. We're shutting completely down in the spring of 2020. However, it continued to guide the work that we're doing. And if you think of what the work that this leadership team was involved in, as well as district teams 2 years ago, we worked with the Center for Leadership in Educational Equity and really trained and built the skill sets of our building MTSS teams. And we had them look at how they use data to help support students and look for trends and really work at improving the processes that are in their schools, processes and structures that support students. And if they're not supporting students to the best of our ability, then how do we change those for the better? That was work that we did 2 years ago, and then that work is now ongoing with our MTSS teams. Last year, we spent the year really looking at how we revise our recruitment our hiring and our retention of staff policies with an eye of how do we recruit and really look for highly qualified, diverse candidates, and not only recruit and possibly hire, but retain those candidates. And so we have a number of things that resulted, tools, if you will, that resulted from that work last year. And we're slowly putting those into place as we hire this year, as buildings put together hiring committees and so forth. And then this year, the leadership team is working on, again, with CLE, instructional rounds, and how do we take what we're doing with each other, but also in our observation of the learning environments, what we're doing to support staff. How do we synchronize that? How do we make sure that what we're providing in terms of support makes the most sense and moves staff and students forward? So just to give you an idea, you have the link there on the digital version of the equity audit itself, but that's some of the work that's been going on. That's the work that will continue. And to the point made earlier, it will be time to bring that district steering committee back together, probably after the new year, and start to look at where, using that report and some of the other data we have, what are the next steps for the district? How do we continue to move this work forward? Other steps that we're taking, basically, I mentioned somewhat on that first slide there, but we want to continue to look at how we support our teachers in blending their instructional environments, not just with what they're doing academically and in content, but how do they build and integrate the social and emotional pieces into their instruction. And then continue, as I said, with the MTSS teams, and then use the survey data that we're getting so that the MTSS teams can actually look to see how do they best support students, the current students who are there in the building. And then something that has been an incredible asset, but also it's unfortunate that we have to have such a strong partnership with a group like River Valley Counseling, and that we utilize their services so much that we do have students at every level who not only are receiving support from our staff, but also are referred and receiving, which is fantastic. It is an incredible asset, and we're really thankful that we have this partnership. But it does give you an indication as to how much the pandemic really impacted not only our district, but districts across the Commonwealth and probably across the nation. And so we continue our partnership with River Valley, and we're monitoring how much we're using and how many students are referred and how that's working in support of our students. Along those lines, I'm going to hand off now to the schools and stop talking and taking the time. Santinella is going to pick up.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. I'm presenting action step for all of the elementary schools. So all three of our schools are providing the second step social and emotional curriculum, which is an evidence-based holistic approach to building supportive communities for every child through social emotional learning. There are 4 units divided into 20 lessons, and the units are growth mindset and goal setting, emotion management, empathy and kindness, and problem solving. These lessons are taught by our counseling staff and school psychologists with support from the classroom teachers who are present for the lessons. We also engage in community circles or morning meetings every day to build strong classroom communities where students feel that they belong and that they're in a safe environment. The stronger the relationships are, the more successful students will be, both socially and academically. And social learning in a supportive community is as important to success as academic learning. And as Gordon mentioned, we all have River Valley Counseling support in our schools. We've been partnering for the last few years to provide therapeutic support for students who have a need but don't have access outside of school hours. So the students may be referred through us, through their families or their pediatricians, and the service is paid for through the family's insurance. We are just providing the time and space for the services to occur. Meadowbrook currently has 8 students receiving services. Maple Shade has 11, and Mountain View has 8. Academic success can only happen if students are actively engaged and present at school. So each elementary school has their own way of promoting a sense of community and fun, so the students want to be at school every day. Here are some of the events and activities that we've had so far this year. Meadowbrook has school spirit days. They had costumes on Halloween for the first time, and they have parent volunteers returning for special events. At Mountain View, we participated in Start with Hello Week. We had a Veterans Day assembly, which LCAT was nice enough to come and record for us. We did a day of fundraising for Rays of Hope. We also had costumes on Halloween. We've brought back after-school programs, return of room parents coming in for classroom activities. Our Twitter social media interns in 5th grade are busy every week. And we've continued with our Friday dance parties, of course. Maple Shade also participated in Start with Hello Week, and they had an assembly during that week. They also celebrated Halloween with a costume contest. Their after-school clubs are up and running. The Maple Shade students performed at the Cultural Awareness Day at the Springfield Courthouse. They have student-led book reviews on the morning announcements. And they have monthly academic adventurer awards given to students nominated for taking risks in their classrooms.
Mrs. Santinella. Moving over to Birchland Park.
Everyone. So at Birchland, we do a lot to try and keep the child's. You've heard me talk about it before, but we have our 30-minute SEL lessons during our Thursday advisories. Students have advisory every day, but on Thursday it's 30 minutes. Every other week, we do a school-wide lesson. In opposite weeks, the teachers run the lessons. We've done a lot of work this year, school-wide on self-regulation, on being an upstander. Then we had a lesson 2 weeks ago on Mitchell Miller, the Boston Bruin, and what he went through based on what happened in middle school. So we talked a lot about, even decisions in middle school matter. And that was sort of some real world learning for the students. The other thing we've really focused on with the lessons this year is that we want to make them easily applicable for teachers to extend in their regular classroom. So for instance, one of our first lessons was on, are you in your safe zone, your stretch zone, or your panic zone? And then teachers started using that during their learning activities. So they could sort of now bring SEL into the regular learning, which has always been a goal. But I feel like this year, more than ever, we've sort of figured out how to do that better. Yes, we have River Valley Counseling. I think we have them there 5 days a week, a single, and 2 more days a week, double. So I don't know how many students it is at this point, but it's almost like a full-time thing at Birchland. We partner with Innocent Classroom still. Steve, Ms. Pereira, and I meet with Innocent Classroom once a month. They're sort of guiding our equity work. They're consulting with us to make sure that we're pushing our equity work forward in the right ways. They've been fantastic for us to work with. We also have our anti-bias, anti-racist committee, which meets once a month. It's now a paid committee. And they, between Innocent Classroom and the consulting, and then our leadership team, and then our ABAR committee, that drives all of our equity work and our decisions to fight racism and fight bias. We're working really hard, led by Mr. Pearson here, on our SAM process and taking in more of what we've learned from Innocent Classroom on making processes equitable and bringing them into our SAM process. And that so far has gone well this year. And we're finding new ways to make our SAM meetings better and better. We've continued to expand our clubs. Pride Club is in its 2nd year. NCCJ Bridges Club stemmed from the work we did with NCCJ at the end of last year. So that's been a nice club to add. Continuing to strengthen sort of with all teachers and staff, our ability to support LGBTQ+ students. And then we've said it now for a decade, but the foundation of all of this is just number one most important thing at Birchland is student-teacher relationships. So I think with that as our foundation, we're able to hold up all the other work we do to support the whole child.
So I'm Gary. I don't know if
All right, is here from high school.
so a lot of our action steps are really continuation of the work we've been doing. So for example, our MTSS team, last year we piloted the idea of using a math teacher as an interventionist, and it went so well that this year we've been able to devote nearly a full-time position to that work. And so we have a person who is a content specialist in a couple of pull-out special ed settings. She's been focusing on MCAS retesters this year. She's been supporting about, I don't know, what's it, eight or 10 kids or so.
That range, yeah.
Somewhere in that, so just prepping to get ready to do their retest here this week. She's been offering real-time tutoring based off the feedback that she's getting from the math department. They created a referral form that they use for her, so they'll tell her the skills that the kids need some support in. Our MTSS team is also branching out, and we're offering more small groups meetings for students, 3 different areas of concern. So attendance, grades, and conduct. And so we've created a form where we send it out to teachers, and recognizing many of them can't make it to our meetings. And so we'll ask them what they're seeing in that particular area for that student. We collect all that information, and then we use that in the meetings for whoever can attend. We're able to still represent several voices there. So that's been going very well for us. A couple other things we wanted to highlight. Our guidance team is pushing out 4 times a year into our ELA classrooms. In addition to our, Mark Macarini working in our career center is pulling kids into his now. You'll see kids in there pretty much daily at this point. There's whole classes are coming into that space for different work that he's leading there. A couple other things that we have going on. We're beginning an attendance mentorship program. We're going to ask our staff to volunteer to sort of champion some kids that are struggling with attendance. Our MTSS team is coordinating all that work with collecting data for kids who are having a hard time making it to school consistently. They'll be soliciting interest from teachers in December. I have a plan set, ready to go with all the support that the teachers will get. We've also been, rolling out some proactive conflict resolution programming. We have obviously some new guidelines in terms of disciplinary laws in the state. And so it's important for us to be ahead of that. And so when we find students in conflict, we're engaging them in this work with our adjustment counselor to make sure that they have the tools other than, verbal or physical altercations. Well, a lot of it is really just, like I said, stuff that we started over the last couple of years that we're just digging in a little bit deeper on this year.
All right, thank you. Mr. Fredette.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see everyone in person. So for the Student Services Office, for myself this year, I've been involved in a couple of important goals and improvements for our school district. One of them is in the area of early childhood education. So our school district wants to continue to improve our early childhood programming for all of our students in East Long Meadow. So one thing that we have expanded is our integrated preschool. We have 3 full-day preschool programs up and running and 2 half-day preschool programs. The staffing for this are 4 licensed preschool early childhood teachers and an early childhood coordinator. We have paraprofessionals assigned to support all of our classes and learners in those programs. We have a variety of related services happening in our early childhood programs: occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech and language, teacher for visually impaired, adaptive physical education, assistive technology, augmentative and adaptive communication teacher. And then for nursing, we have a full-time RN. It's actually 2 RNs that share the position. That's working out really, really well. We have 65 students enrolled, both students with disabilities and without disabilities, in our integrated preschool program. One other addition is we have a program that we call our Milestones program. So this is a substantially separate early childhood program for children with significant and complex needs. This is staffed by a licensed special education teacher, and the early childhood coordinator is a position that also works across our integrated preschool, our Milestones program, and also our walk-in program, which I'll explain in a little while. We have paraprofessionals that support this program and all of our students in that program. We have full-time nursing. This is the shared nursing position. They do a 3-day a week, 2-day a week. They're shared between the integrated preschool and the Milestones program. And all of the related services that I explained that are embedded into our integrated preschool are also embedded into our Milestones program. We service 6 students in this program currently. We have a very robust and exciting walk-in program that's happening here in our Student Services Office in the high school. This is staffed by 2 speech and language pathologists. One is a full-time staff member, another is a contracted service. They also provide the speech and language services for our high school students as well. So our walk-in preschoolers or our walk-in 3 and 4-year-olds, they require speech and language services as a walk-in. And so we have 14 of those students coming here to the Student Services Office for their services in that area. So that's early childhood education. That's exciting.
Michael, if they're on an IEP or BIP, it's a 504 for SLP as a 3 to 5, that they don't qualify for the preschool, or they do and they don't take it. How does that
They
work?
qualify for speech and language services only, and they're designated as a walk-in student.
Okay, specifically, so they don't actually qualify for the
Correct.
preschool. Okay.
Correct. So then we also have, if you'd go to the next slide, thank you. We have a transition to adulthood program. So these are students ages 18 to 22 years old that have not graduated from high school, and they have more significant and complex needs generally. And they require related services, specialized instruction, adult programming beyond their high school years. This is staffed by 1 licensed special education teacher. Many related service providers work in this program as well, similar to our integrated preschool and milestones programming. We do have nursing staff that supports these students. Many of these students require hands-on nursing. We have an RN, an LPN, and 2 CNAs. We have 4 students in that program. We're also looking to formulate a partnership with NEBA, which is the New England Business Association. And so what NEBA does is it supports and employs inclusive opportunities for all adults with disabilities in the community. We're trying to get students out into our community more, so it's not just a high school experience for adult learners. We're trying to get them opportunities beyond just the walls of our high school, but it is an in-district program located in our high school. So we look to improve and expand on this programming as well as needs arise.
We've taken 2 field trips so far.
We have.
Yeah. I think they're planning the-
We've done big wide trips to come and do life skills programming and menu preparation. And we've been to the Big E, we've been to the Thunderbirds, we've been bowling at Shaker Bowl. So it's good. It's really good.
Thank you, Mr. Fredette. Moving around the circle, now we're looking at instructional practice.
Connected to that.
Absolutely,
photo,
please, yeah.
Didn't
Want to go back one slide?
Jesslyn and
Yes.
Ward too? Okay, so I placed 3rd, right?
3rd in the nationally, yes, for the, it was a voluntary thing to submit a video. Of course, Mountain View is highly competitive, Amy Pelzick in particular. So she put together a video of all the activities we did for the week and submitted it, and we came in 3rd in the country. So we are going to be receiving a $500, I don't know, they called it a stipend or something, but to use towards activities next year. So it has a specific purpose. We haven't received it yet, but yes, we did. I don't typically highlight myself, I guess, as much as I should, but. I will. Okay,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that. And Ms. Brown is going to walk us through the instructional practice goal.
Sure. So this goal is that Long Meadow Public Schools will continue to support its staff to provide standards-based 21st century learning experiences throughout all grade levels that are rooted in universal design for learning and culturally sustaining pedagogy in order for all students to achieve. And this is aligned with the DESE Accelerated Roadmap Priority 3, which is ensuring strong grade appropriate instruction with just-in-time scaffolds when they are needed. So for a few years now, we have been focusing on universal design for learning and culturally sustaining pedagogy in our professional development. Both are designed both are around removing barriers so that all kids can access the curriculum. With universal design, it's really about removing different barriers around access, how they show their learning, how they receive learning, and also with engagement, which, as Mr. Smith said, that's one of the things that we are looking at when we're doing our instructional rounds. And culturally sustaining pedagogy has a lot of different things that we've already talked about. It's very connected to SEL in terms of kids feeling safe and included and belonging. But it also is tied into the kind of curricular materials that we utilize. And because of a lot of funding that has come to us through the state, we've really been able to prioritize purchasing and implementing new curricular materials that are not only universally designed and culturally responsive, but are better aligned with the standards, and will help us make sure that all of our students are receiving the grade level work that's going to accelerate their learning. And so down here, we have some scope and sequences as part of our evidence. And that is really work that we're doing with staff to show how the new curricular materials are aligned to state standards and also recommended pacing. We have other things that we utilize besides just the new curricular materials that we're using. So we really want to make these documents something that teachers can utilize in their day-to-day planning. And so in addition, we've also provided professional development for the implementation of these curricular materials. And like Mr. Smith said, working as a leadership team to make sure that we feel prepared in supporting the implementation as well. So, like I said, the LPS leadership team will work with the Center for Leadership and Educational Equity for our instructional rounds. We've been doing, it's been very, very powerful and exciting. And this continued work both with the elementary implementation committee and departments to work on these scope and sequence documents and improving our, how we're reporting this information to parents. And so parents of and families of elementary report cards or elementary students will be receiving a cover letter with the report card kind of explaining the new curricular materials and how that might change some things in terms of expectations they've had in the past, like, for example, a reading level. They're not going to get that reading level because a lot of the research that's happening now is that reading level is very much connected to students' prior knowledge, and therefore it can change depending on the text. So we're providing them with other information that will help them understand how their child is progressing. And then we also have continued to invest in our personalized learning software. We have Lexia K-2 and also at 3 to 5 for students who need some extra support. At the middle school for a reading intervention that's called Power Up Reading, and it's much more designed for middle school students. We have iReady support for reading 3 to 5, and then at 6 to 8, they're utilizing iReady Math and reading instruction for that personalized learning. We continue to use ST Math. We phased out iReady Math at the elementary level so that we can really focus on that ST Math because it is connected to the instruction that we want to see in the classrooms around inquiry-based, concept-based math instruction. And then we purchased this year Learning Ally, which allows all students, regardless of their IEP status, to have access to Audible books. The big reason why we purchased this is because the Wit and Wisdom curriculum K-5 is very rigorous. And we didn't want the barrier of not necessarily being able to decode the grade level text yet to get in the way of students having access to grade level texts, their background knowledge, for their vocabulary development. And so now all students have access to books, these Audible books, both for supporting the curriculum, but also just for at-home reading. And the rep from Learning Ally called me, "What are you doing? Oh, your kids are reading so much." So it's great. The kids have really been utilizing it on their own as well.
You're saying the Audible books?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And in the past, we've used something called Bookshare, which requires you to do all this documentation of a reading disability. This is very lax. And so you just say that a child has a reading difficulty because to them it could be, attentional or, lack of motivation, a lot of the different things that kind of happen with kids and accessing text. So it's much more flexible for us to give access to our kids, which is it's universal design when anybody can have access. And then it's less of a stigma for kiddos who really need it because they're struggling with ability.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Yeah, they're connecting instructional.
So that was great. I'll just follow along. I'm Lauren Stager, principal at Meadowbrook, and I'll start off on this slide for all 3 elementary schools. So through the work of the curriculum committee, we have adopted a number of new curricular resources this year, as you're well aware. Our work at the 3 elementary schools as it relates to the instructional practice SMART goal is heavily focused on supporting teachers with the implementation of these new programs. The expectations for literacy this year include the full implementation of foundations in grades K through 3. This is a research-based word study program, which is the phonics skills necessary for reading and writing using a multi-sensory approach. And it also includes handwriting instruction. The full implementation of Heggerty is happening in grades K through 2. This is a research-based program designed to complement the core literacy curriculum. It is focused on developing students' phonemic awareness skills, also through a multi-sensory. We have begun implementing the Wit and Wisdom. It is a modified implementation in grades K through 5 with the goal of reaching the end of module 3 by the end of the school year. There are 4 modules in total in this program. But thought there was a lot going on, so we wanted to help teachers breathe a little bit, give them some grace. Wit and Wisdom is our core literacy program, and it's designed to build students' knowledge and general reading skills that they need to be successful. Students engage with a complex grade level text while digging deeply into each module's topic. And just some ones that I was able to think of off the top of my head include things such as seasons, how children access libraries around the world, and the 5 senses. Noticing, wondering, and discussion are primary ways in which students gain entry points into the units. And in addition, we have an optional implementation of Geodes in grades K through 2. Geodes is a series of decodable readers designed to be paired with foundational reading programs that provide systematic and explicit phonics and phonemic awareness instruction. This resource is available to teachers this year as an optional supplement to the other programs, and with the expectation that they will start using it next year. Everyone will start using it next year.
And for math, the district has adopted Illustrative Math as the new core curricular resource. This is a research-based curriculum designed to develop a deep conceptual understanding in math to build fluency and help students solve mathematical problems that relate to the real world. It has a strong focus in developing math vocabulary for students through active exploration and a lot of group or collaborative learning experiences. And just in terms of something Lauren alluded to, as you know, at the elementary level, our teachers teach all of the core subject areas. So implementing 4 to 5 brand new curricular resources in 1 year was an incredibly daunting and overwhelming thought for us. It's a lot to learn, especially with the large shift in our literacy instruction. And it's not just a shift in using a resource for some people, it's a shift in mindset for a lot of people and how we're teaching and approaching literacy. We knew that would be a lot to take on for folks. So we've kind of phased in the rollout of these materials over what appears to be a 2-year period right now. So we've kind of developed a modified pacing, as Lauren alluded to, with the Wit and Wisdom and with the optional implementation of Geodes this year, with the expectation of full implementation next year. Similar is true for math. The use of existing resources or illustrative math was the expectation for math for this year. So teachers had the choice in K-4 whether they were going to use Eureka, which was the curriculum that we had in place before, Graham Fletcher resources, which have been around for a while, or make that transition now into IM. And that was given as an option for folks because some folks did pilot that last year. So they're familiar with it. So it wasn't an overwhelming thing to take on for them. In fifth grade, however, because they are departmentalized, there was an expectation that they take on both the literacy and the math for this year. For K-4, the expectation will be full implementation of IM for next year. In addition to that, as Heather mentioned earlier, we're still using ST Math as a curricular support and resource under the grant. We are following the requirements in K-1 of 60 minutes per week and in grades 2 through 5 of 90. And all of our work related to curriculum instruction at the elementary level is really to this. So that trickles down to our revised assessments, our revised assessment calendar in alignment with these new curricular resources. And it also has really been the main focus of all the professionals development that we've been offering for teachers at the elementary level. It's been really intended to help support and scaffold the implementation of these processes.
And you just made me think about shifting the reading interventionist approaches as well, their materials and their assessments.
Okay, so I just want to say if I'm not my normal peppy self, it's because of the US men's national team. Okay, I haven't recovered from the 1-1 tie. This
Hi, come on, it's a draw.
100 times more residents of this country than Wales. Anyways, so I'm trying to work through that. Also, is it your birthday? Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Hey, happy birthday, Michael.
My daughter turns 13 tonight. That's why I know it's Michael's birthday too.
We're celebrating birthdays. Wouldn't that make you peppier?
Yeah, it should, but that really knocked me down. Okay, so at Birchland Park, we're very focused on this goal. I'll start with, we're using enrichment time. We have enrichment time twice a week. Students that cannot get interventions in their special schedule, in their off-team classes, we give them some intervention time during enrichment. We've seen this working. We've moved kids in and out after Q1, just like we do in our tiered reading and tiered classes. So it's been a nice other safety net to catch kids that we weren't catching before. Just like last year, we have 60 minutes built into our schedule now where students work in iReady MyPath for reading and math. We had some good success in our growth percentages last year, and we attribute this to a lot of things, but we think getting students to focus on their MyPath work for 60 minutes at school is a part of it. We're very proud. We're in year 2 of the science grant that we were awarded, the 3-year grant for our new inquiry-based science curriculum. It's called Open SciEd. This is year 2. It is going very well. I myself went to a training at Boston College this fall with a lot of educators from across the state, and our department is doing a fantastic job with it. So much so that next week we have a whole other local middle school that's considering going to Open SciEd coming to observe in our science classrooms because they've heard it's been successful at Birchland. It's an awesome hands-on science curriculum. It's all inquiry-based. Like, I'm getting smarter at science walking through the classes because it's no memorization and regurgitation. It is all figure it out. And when you finally do, it's going to stick for real. We also have gone to illustrative math and also to reveal algebra. So we're in year 1 there. Teachers are all diving in and working hard at it. We've had some good trainings with the company and we have some more still to come. And my department chair and my coach are leading. Mr. Pierce and I have been very hands-off in that work that the department itself has done an incredible job. And then our math department is also focused on standards-based learning. This is really our 2nd year of our standards-based grades, even though we started them like 4 or 5 years ago because of COVID, we shut them down. So we're getting better and better at that. And it's driving changes in our skills that we're looking at. It's also driving very elevated levels of creating formative assessments almost weekly to see how kids are doing on standards. And then lastly, I'll mention that as a school, we've decided to look at student engagement. And 2 reasons for that. 1, on our student surveys in Panorama, it's of our school culture, it's our lowest score is how students feel they're being engaged. And 2, because after COVID, every school in America is trying, right in the world, is trying to bring kids back and get them re-engaged. So we're doing, led by us, a full year dive into student engagement. We've had 4 workshops so far. It's really focused on UDL, student relationships, overcoming barriers, And so far, so good. And we're gonna start doing walkarounds as a school in December, where the teachers will walk around and look at engagement in other classrooms, which we completely haven't done once since COVID. So very excited to bring back Birchland walkarounds in December.
And just as a connected point, the leadership team's instructional rounds, the first two visits, one was at the middle school, one was at the high school, and the connected focus, which the principal has a chance to work on with the representative from CLE, was on student engagement and went incredibly well. And so we may be able to reconnect once you get your walkarounds going to look further into that. Thank you.
Tim, UDL,
Page.
UDL, Tim,
Oh, sorry.
UDL.
Universal design for learning. So it's a way to teach so that kids have way more choices. And then therefore get way more engaged. That's really simplifying it.
Yeah, no, it is. I appreciate the refresher. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, Ms. Blaine, sorry.
Everyone, I'm Ann Blaine. At the high school, we're focusing on universal design for learning. We have been working with UDL for about 3 years now. Of course, it's a district-wide initiative, and so now we're beyond all of the initial UDL, and so we're digging into it on a deeper level. So there were 4 areas that teachers are working in, and the groups they're working in have actually become professional learning communities. And so this work will be ongoing. And so they're focusing on 4 areas: multiple means of representation, multiple means of engagement, multiple means of action and expression, and expert learners, because one of the pushes of UDL is to focus on student choice and student voice. This work is ongoing, as I said. We also have some departments that are focusing on new curriculum this year. So our math, social studies, and classical and modern language departments have all adopted new curriculum. So those departments have had some release time from the PD that focuses on UDL, so they can dig a little deeper into their new programming, and they can build a better understanding. Obviously, once they have been, they're fully implementing their new curriculum, they will then into the UDL work with everybody else.
Thank you. Questions on that? We'll move into our next goal, which is just fully around the circle, and this is continuous learning and achievement. And what we're looking at here is how do we bring all this together, continue to support our teachers in collaborating with each other and supporting each other, so that we put our students in the best possible situation to learn and grow. And so at the end, this does align with the DESE Accelerated Roadmap with Priority 2. And at the end of the year, as you know, we looked at and we're able to hit, for the most part, we talked about this at our last meeting, our typical growth range on the MCAS, not in all grade levels, but in most, somewhere in that 40% to 60% growth range. What we're looking to do is hit that in all areas and make sure that all grade levels are hitting that typical growth range. Then also, we're still seeing some grade levels struggling to be above state average when you put together, mostly in that exceeding expectations in meeting, and the other areas we were above state averages, but not exceeding the state average at all grade levels in meeting and exceeding. And so we'd like to see that happen again as it did pre-COVID pretty consistently. And then last year we saw some great typical growth on iReady. So we bumped up that percentage. And so we're looking for hopefully at the end of the year, annual typical growth somewhere in the 40 to 60% range. And then the stretch growth, which also was quite good, looking at 30 to 40% range on that. And so those would be things that end of the year present, and we're celebrating the achievement, hopefully that. Obviously, we won't see the MCAS results till the fall. So, we will have our own internal assessments and be able to report out on that. taking a look at some of the actions to hopefully get us there. Simply put, we're looking at how do we create and do a better job, more efficient job at all the structured times that are provided, not only in our calendar, which we discussed earlier, but just on a daily basis and at the building level. How do we make the structured time that we provide faculty and staff just more efficient? And where can we support so that ultimately that impacts in a positive way student outcomes? Those action steps basically are saying that. Just trying to summarize. And so some of the things that we'll talk about as we do other presentations will be, what are we doing with our MTSS teams? What are we doing during common planning time? That's what CPT means. Looking at our growth data and looking at things like how are we doing with more students taking honors level and AP level classes, so forth. With that.
Yeah, that's me.
Elementary schools and Mr. Martin.
Good evening, everybody. So much of what I'm going to talk about has been referenced already because of what we're doing at the elementary level. It's building upon what has been presented so far. So with common planning time, the most of the time for common planning time has been to really allow teachers the opportunity to collaborate and dive in deeply to the wit and wisdom curriculum. This has been a significant change this year, and with any change, we devote significant time to allow for success. So allowing weekly meetings with teachers to be able to dive into the materials, unpack, and then just take the material as it is written in a vacuum and then look at the students in front of us, because no curriculum is successful if we don't adapt it to meet the needs of the students in front of us. So, and that's the joy of teaching. So being able to take the curriculum as it exists and then find the way to bring it to life through our knowledge and shared knowledge of teaching practices is something that we are working on in the elementary level. And it's working because it's really cool. As we've discussed, it's a shift in thinking in terms of the literacy needs of our students and how to approach it. But over the last couple of weeks, I've seen some just really cool things in classrooms. There was a fourth grade class that I happened to walk into, and I was just walking through classrooms, and I happened to stay a little bit longer in this one particular classroom just because of what I was observing. And what the kids were working on, they were looking at stopping by woods on a snowy evening. And for context, this was something that when I was a 7th grade teacher, this was a text that I used in 7th grade. And to see all of the 4th grade students fully engaged in this poem, it was really, really inspiring. So they were, identifying what they noticed, what they wondered, they were making conclusions. So eventually I just had to stop. I had to stop what I was seeing and just acknowledge this high level of thinking that I saw from our students and say, guys, this is something that 7th grade middle school students, did when I had them, and you're doing it well as 4th grade students. So I had to acknowledge that. And just seeing students, engage in visual analysis of an image. I can't remember the name of it, but that famous painting of a Japanese wave. Just seeing students, look at it and be able to analyze the composition and the intent of the artist's line work. And so when I hear them discussing this, I almost hear the gears shifting in their minds towards critical thinking, and I can see how they will then begin to apply these critical thinking skills that they are using to analyze this image towards a text. And that is all because of the time that is being spent in CPT to allow teachers to be able to dive into these materials and bring it to life for the students. So common planning time has been a huge boon to our teachers across the 3 elementary levels. And in terms of utilizing data, all three schools are in various, our MTSS teams are in various degrees of implementation. But what's consistent is that we have looked at the iReady scores throughout the schools and the grades, and we're delivering the necessary interventions based on what we're seeing. And honestly, as something of an outsider to elementary, coming to things from a secondary background, it's really apparent to me that everything that I've tried to do in a secondary level and just seek out the strength of relationships and try to formulate that is the inherent strength of elementary. And just because of the small nature of the classrooms, that allows for very quick relationships and strong relationships. And our teachers are lucky enough to be able to very quickly identify the needs of students and be able to very quickly provide the necessary interventions that, took a lot more time in secondary, simply by the very nature of secondary having so many more students. But it's just great to see that purity of relationships at the elementary level. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to the data itself, the next big step will be in January when we get the next round of iReady. And the survey, Heather, when is the next time we're getting a survey?
January.
Perfect. Okay, so at that time, we'll have a lot more data to be able to measure how our students are doing. They have remained steady, if they have increased, or if they have declined, and then we'll build necessary plans utilizing MTSS, which, as it states, is a multi-tiered system of support. So it's not one thing. It's a really understanding that no two students have the same two needs. And it's just allowing the opportunity for schools to be able to address those needs, to make sure that every student gets what they need to be successful.
Thank you.
Pearson.
Hi, Steve Pearson, Assistant Principal at Birchland. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about what we're doing at the middle school level. The first bullet talks about iReady, which of course is an excellent personalized learning program we have for the kids to address any deficits they might have at their own level, built into our school day. But it also supplies us with an amazing suite of tools to get some actionable data. One of those being iReady mastery checks, which we conduct at the end of units, math and ELA. So it's outside of the teacher created assessments, which a lot of times might be some hands-on or group assignments, maybe kind of a third-party independent look at what the student mastery of the standard that we were trying to convey really is. And it's really heavily MCAS aligned, which is great. And it gives our students some exposure also to those tech enhanced questions that they'll see on MCAS, where they're highlighting things within a passage or within a question in mathematics. It's a great way for our teachers to get that kind of data, seeing what did the kids understand about this standard? So I taught it, did I measure it the way somebody else might ask about it on MCAS or something else? And then what do we need to do to support where we had strengths? And then where do we see some deficits we might need to go back and reteach? So it's great for giving us that really actionable data. Same with the growth checks we get in iReady. We do diagnostics 3 times a year, which are a pretty big deal. And it takes a little while to do that full kind of a comprehensive look at where a student stands with their math or reading skills. But a growth check is all about the brevity. So we can kind of stop along the way. Teachers can do it on demand. I know our tiered programs use it in between quarters when we don't have diagnostics. Special ed instructors, liaisons will use it for progress notes to see where their kids are in the progress with the growth goals that were set by the diagnostic beginning of the year. Are the kids on track? Where are they showing some lack? Where do we need to give them a little bit more support? So iReady is fantastic for that stuff. Weekly collaboration station counterpart times. We're fortunate at the middle school level that we have this stuff built into our schedule. So we have collaborative times, we call it collaboration station, which is kind of a grade level meeting, which happens every week. Some special sprinkled in, we'll sit down and talk about some of the best practices that are going on in the classroom, what some of the data showing, what do we want to do about that data. We also have counterpart times where teachers at a grade level will meet with their counterpart, the other ELA teacher, the other math teacher, other social studies teacher, and they can look specifically at their content area and what they're going to do going forward and make some planning. So iReady mastery checks, it's a great time to have that data meeting afterwards. The 2 teachers will sit down and look at how their kids did on that mastery check and identify Again, what were the strengths? What were our weaknesses? What distractors were the kids picking and why? And what are we going to do before we dive into the next unit to make sure that the kids got this down? So it's great to have that time work right in there every week. It's very consistent for us and it's fantastic. All right, we have a new student intervention coordinator position this year. It's running all kind of our MTSS program, kind of catch the kids that have some needs to make sure everybody's getting the support that they require. It really is finished to take that even to another level. I mean, we had this week our student intervention coordinator meeting with teams to look at the results of the fall climate survey to see how kids were feeling about their experience in school. So we have all kinds of safety nets which will catch kids academically, catch kids with flagging attendance. But we might have kids that don't show up under any of those safety nets. They're not always feeling comfortable or supported at school. And so now we have another measure in place to catch those kids and help our team strategize about what we want to do to make sure those kids are feeling supported. All right, iReady, I'm going back to iReady because that's our favorite here. So incentive rewards as we strive to increase student motivation. Much as we love iReady, our students don't always share our thrill and joy of it. And it's only as good as if you engage in it with complete fidelity. So we've been trying to get that motivation up. We've been seeing amazing ticks in the right direction in time on task and in lesson completion. I can thank our PTO for providing us some wonderful incentives to get kids going. Our teams have really been on it. Like I said, we had the iReady Awards at the end of the year, which are amazing. And we've really been pushing it. And I think that's a big reason why we saw such significant growth numbers last year is the push that we put to try and motivate people to really engage in iReady. Our ELA department is focused on aligning teaching and assessing of all three genres of writing. This is all about vertical alignment, kind of looking at what each grade level teaches. What do we need to continue to sustain as they move through the middle school experience, and what new wrinkles do we add at each level? So we're putting a lot of time into doing that and making sure we're all on the same page of what we're measuring, designing rubrics and looking at the writing tasks themselves, seeing what kind of similarities and differences we have. While Tim's really been leading a lot of the UDL work, we took our first round of data from the diagnostic. Just kind of confirmed something we've seen in recent years on MCAS as well as iReady, that our kids struggle more when it comes to reading comprehension with informational texts than they do with reading narratives and fiction. So we've started some PD. We're going to have some more coming about looking at our practices around how we teach informational texts. This has been ELA and social studies working together, kind of try to identify those best practices and then formulate what we're going to try and do as the two departments approaching this problem in the same way to kind of get some continuity, get some common language going. So hopefully we can see those scores push up to match the proficiency that our kids are showing when they're reading fictional texts. That's it.
Mr. Pearson. Moving to the high school.
Okay, so at the high school with our action steps connected to continuous learning and achievement. Just starting off, we are continuing to identify and utilize programs and teaching practices that provide our staff with formative feedback for students in their classes, and that connects back to the UDL work that we're doing in our professional development and what we're trying to embed into our curriculum. The three content areas where we're really digging in and being targeted in our approach are in the math, science, English department. Right now, in the last couple of months, we've got our MCAS data back from the previous spring, and our departments at their November staff meeting really dug into the areas where we see as areas of I'll say growth, and what we're focusing on with the MCAS data right now, because obviously COVID disrupted a lot of schools across the state. We're focusing on those areas where we score below the state average in either certain clusters or domain, or maybe types of questions on the test. And from those, we're building formative assessments that we can target for formative data and analyze where the students may still be weak and continue to make improvements there. So just for example, if you're looking at an area like math, just one area where we saw some area of weakness with our students is expressing geometric properties and equations. So when we get to that in our curriculum, collecting that formative data to see where the kids still might be weak and making sure we're reteaching and addressing prepare for this year. Just continuing from there, a big thing for us this year, and this is really probably the biggest action step, even though it's listed at number 3, our departments will continue to revise their curriculum and their scope and sequence to adopt to full year programming. Obviously, the last couple of years, We have been in that block schedule where classes were semester based. But right now, all of our classes across the board have transitioned to full year programming. And then, as Ms. Blaine highlighted before, some of the professional development connected to it, but it's also the implementation of it in our classes. We do have 3 of our core departments implementing new curriculum this year. In the classical and modern language department, we have VHL Learning and Audios, which is a proficiency-based learning curriculum. That's not just necessarily just the work that they do, but also in how they're assessed in their grading. In the social studies department and the U.S. history and the world history courses, the teachers are utilizing History Alive, which is, it's a great resource. It's time for us to revamp and update that curriculum, and there's a lot of primary document analysis happening in those 2 classes. And then the last department is the math department, where we purchased a new curriculum. It's called Reveal Math, which Dr. Allen also highlighted is being implemented at Birchland Park. And that's being pushed into our Algebra 1, our Geometry, and our Algebra 2 classes. So the hope is, especially with the math, it also as well as with the transition to full year programming, it helps us get some of our MCAS scores back on track.
Okay, Mr. Page. That brings us back fully through the circle. All 3 goals working integrally with each other. Questions as we went through, but questions that maybe at the end of the presentation now you held for the end of our presentation.
Stuff. I mean, it sounds like getting back on track. Teachers are busy, but getting back on track too. So it's normal, right? Ish.
Yes.
Ish.
I think we're recreating normal.
Yeah.
Not sure how we're defining it yet. But we are reading.
Ish. You just said ish to him.
It's an incredible group you have in front of you, and can't say enough about our staff across the district. So they've been fantastic all the way through the COVID impacted years. This year, there's a lot, as you saw, going on and being implemented, and they've been pretty incredible up to this point. I wouldn't throw a survey out between the holiday rush, Thanksgiving and the holidays. That's why January, Mr. Martin, is going to be when we throw that next survey out.
For students too.
As we all know that there's added stress during the holidays, as joyous as they are. And Molly agrees. So, other questions, comments before the leadership team to head off into the night?
Just to acknowledge the staff, like as you did, Mr. Smith, certainly a lot of new implementations, a lot of work that's involved. It's clear from all that you all do and all they do on an annual basis. This seems a heavier lift than other years, from my perspective at least. And I know that the staff continues to work forward as again, you all do too. So thank you, and thank them from a community perspective, because we know we're all heading in the right direction. So. Okay. And certainly thank you all for showing up tonight. Good to have you back in person. Looks well. Have a nice Thanksgiving. Yeah, thank you, you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brown, you want to just leave up the front slide? That way see the joyousness of graduation.
Yes.
There you go. You don't see the scaffolding. Okay.
Hi, Lauren. Feel better.
All right. Good night. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have a couple reimbursements and or gifts. The National Energy Education Development Project, as educators attend certain events, often provides reimbursement for their attendance in those events. And so we have $110 check that is coming back to Mountain View. And we would like your approval to deposit that check and put it into their school account.
I move to accept the check for $110 from the National Energy Education Development Project. To go back into the account for Mountain View School.
Yeah, go into their gift
Mountain View
account.
School gift
Gifting
account.
account,
Yep.
sorry.
Sam, got that?
Yep, got it.
Great, thank you. Motion has been made by Beth,
Second,
second by Sarah. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
I,
Aye. Those opposed, nay. That carries 4-0.
Thank you. Then we have a Spartan Walkway donation. We have a brick donation, Christina Bellucci, $100 check, and we'd like to be able to put that into the high school gift account. You can see the letter from Mr. Page.
I move to accept the $100 check donation from Christina Bellucci for one brick to go to the East High School gift account.
Excellent. Motion made by Beth. Second by Amy. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
I,
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Carries 4-0. Capital plan.
Okay,
Um,
under old business, exciting stuff, not the dramatic stuff, we have a capital plan. And we're bringing it back to all of you, one at your places, I have placed,
Yeah.
yes, so
the one on our.
the one that was at your places is the most up-to-date capital plan, and the one change in that highlighted area where we had the separation of the projects at Mountain View. Got our communication crossed a little bit as Mr. Fenny and I were working on this, and we had been placing because we've seen so much inflation and price escalation. We've been putting 30% contingencies on projects. The rooftop units project number 19 there in the first round actually got a 60% contingency. So we scaled that back to 30%. That's the level at your places. So we have broken out the projects. As you asked, Mountain View electrical upgrades, 629,000, and then the rooftop units were we to go forward with that is just over 2.5 million. All of the schools, as you can see in that sort of middle column where it says, or it's abbreviated BLDG, you see what the building priority is for this fiscal year or planning for next fiscal year, actually. So for Meadowbrook, it's that parking lot redesign where the cost has come down considerably, something that DPW feels that they can execute and increase parking with moving around the or removing really the traffic islands. Then at Maple Shade, it's looking at the flat areas of the roof. At Mountain View, it's looking at first the interior office renovation and then the electrical upgrade. Mountain View just historically, so you know, was the one school, at least in my tenure, that has not received an electrical upgrade. So you're still dealing there with an older electrical system where it's becoming more and more challenging to get parts as things break down. And so that's what that 629,000 is for. High school, obviously, we know their situation, but there are smaller projects that have been done at the high school to try to mitigate some of the challenges with the electrical system here at the high school. We haven't done those smaller projects at Mountain View. We haven't done a full upgrade either, which we had done at the other schools. Then the rooftop units, that was one project, but it makes sense to break that out. So if you were to go with rooftop air conditioning units, that's just over $2.5 million. And then Birchland, it's looking at replacing that ballasted flat roof area, roughly $345,000. And then district-wide, we are maintaining, as we said, the last meeting, our turf. I think that maintenance program is going very well. However, turf life expectancy is somewhere in that 10 to 14 year range, 14 years, really stretching it as we look out. Some areas have gone to, or districts have gone to that level. But eventually you do need to replace the turf. It's not going to be able to last forever just with maintenance.
What are we at?
We are just at 11 years.
Was this on last year's capital request?
It was, I believe, out a year. It wasn't in the.
Oh, was it just 1 year?
Yeah.
7.3 million dollars.
Yes. Down though, because it took up at 30%. I mean, it's just to connect to the presentation we made the other night. Sadly, our buildings are aging. We will continue to seek out assistance where possible from the Mass School Building Authority. But these are things that will and need to be done to keep our students in buildings that are functional and can support their learning.
None of the buildings currently have rooftop AC units, correct?
Only in where you have modular
Right.
additions, those do have rooftop units.
So why the priority there, Meadow?
This was something that came out of the 2013 facility study. Some of these projects have continued, you see up in Meadowbrook, rooftop air conditioner units. All the buildings at the elementary level in the classrooms have window units.
Yeah.
Meadowbrook, I would say, probably has the most efficient system of window units because as we did the windows and doors project, we made sure that we updated all the window units and got the same models and make sure they were fitted properly. And so they have at least a system that is probably more efficient than the window units that you're seeing at the other two elementary schools. And so in 2013, when they looked at all our buildings, I think everybody feels that if possible, air conditioning is something that would be great for the buildings. So the facility study looked at how do you take inefficient window units, rooftop units in place.
I just think the reality is without a new building project.
Yeah.
It'll never
Yeah,
happen.
no, I think certainly the master plan was looking at how do you put us in the best possible position?
Yeah,
And we know that the capital planning piece is around what's the reality at this moment in terms of fiscal.
yeah,
ability
it's
and
not
responsibility.
$7.3 million.
So you're saying that the electrical upgrade and the units were one and they broke them apart?
When we discussed it last time.
Okay.
We broke them apart.
Oh, this was the last meeting.
It was combined
Oh, okay.
price wise.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously the electrical upgrade to me is.
Correct. That makes, it was a very good point.
Yeah.
And so it was good to break those apart.
I don't know. I think we should take the AC units off, but
Yeah, I
guess we could ask, but it's a lot. 7.3 million is way out of the ballpark, you know?
I mean, I kind of think the parking lot design at Meadowbrook is almost a safety issue in a way. The roof replacement's a safety issue. I don't know about the office renovation, if they're doing anything to make sightlines better.
That's what it's about.
So I feel that's a safety issue, electrical upgrades, a safety issue. But you know, the air conditioning is.
Yeah, it's never gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would rather, give them something that they can say, all right, maybe we could pick
Yeah.
something out of here than for them to go, come on. What are they looking at us for?
And even the turf, I know we need to get there, but I really wanted to wait on that. And I don't know if we could, include that in our project or not, but
Well, as you recommend this to the town, you don't necessarily have to put the turf as the top projects that
Yeah.
they're prioritizing. It can always be down. It's going to get, I think it needs to be in the discussion
Right.
because you don't want to lose track that it needs to happen.
Right.
Is that something that the school building committee can also talk about? Certainly, I think we can talk about it at our next school building committee meeting. But you're also looking at 630,000. So, as you're trying to
yeah.
keep that project
Yeah.
somewhat contained. Yeah, it's challenging. Not dissimilar though to other districts and other municipalities.
I think the original turf process, I remember just thinking that was insane. back in the day. Should have stuck with the sprinkler
project.
system.
Oh, in the grass.
That's all the guy
Wow.
wanted.
But
was
the community gets a ton of work.
I
Instead of
understand.
that, like you got a Long Meadow, you can't
They
use that.
wanted it. It's beautiful. I understand that, but,
No, I think it's.
I guess I
value it.
feel when I'm looking at, as we're replacing these things, I feel like the track, I'm happy it was done.
Mhm.
But I almost feel like we could have pushed that another like year, you know what I mean? To have, it just seemed like it was,
Take the funding when you get it.
I know that, I guess,
CPC.
you know.
That was
You know what I'm saying?
preservation.
Done so quick, so well. There was no fanfare and I very much appreciate it. But now I'm sitting there going, we've gotten another year. It's another year in
Well, I
the
wonder if we
future
should
and.
for CPC for this.
We can certainly
And
look at
if it
that.
doesn't, it's not required this year, we have a year or two, then we could plan for it, CPC.
I can look at how other communities may have done that. I believe that there have been communities across the Commonwealth that may have. I don't know if they've received
Well-
all of the money from the community preservation, but they may have received some
For the replacement.
for the replacement of turf.
Yeah,
Because to the point that you made, it's not just used for high school athletics, it's used for town athletics.
well, and if the track is applicable, then.
Right.
And so I think if the discussion is leave it on the list, but potentially in the next year to plan on capital or CPC funding. I don't want to micromanage how they pick their projects, but it's kind of as they come. And so maybe if we kind of drop this as a hint that it's coming in the next year or two, then they can consider that. But I would say leave it on the list, as you said, Gordon, but put it lower. Are you looking for prioritization tonight?
If the committee's ready, we, prioritize and then I can put the final recommendation to the towns if they have it in their planning.
Yeah.
I'm kind of impressed with the Meadowbrook parking lot design number. I think that's low.
Well, it came down quite a bit.
It-
Because we're not doing as much. The lighting was approved last year, so the lightings was separated out, if you remember. And this is more paving and getting rid of traffic islands as opposed to getting rid of some and improving others. This is just opening it up.
Okay.
In the presentation of this document, can we get rid of the cents?
Yeah,
The numbers just look bigger than they are.
sure. Okay, so move the decimal point in.
Just get rid of it. Yeah.
Yep.
So what's their must do here?
It really is, and I know it's challenging. It's if you can prioritize. The buildings obviously have their priorities. As a district, which one are we putting forth as one, as two, as three? So that then I can make that recommendation to the town capital plan.
Well, I think the roof, the Birchland roof may come first. That's more of a priority than the redesign. I think the redesign is important. But
Yeah,
the
oh,
roof
yeah, no,
has to
yes.
be
I
fixed.
would say also don't forget Maple Shade's roof. They have.
That's fine, but $2.7 million is a hurdle. So I put that second then. And then the redesign.
Well, this is
And then the.
your
opportunity.
priorities. I'm just points of
What
discussion.
do you have, Sarah? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the roof works for me.
Roof first?
It's because it's probably gonna get done.
Yeah,
So,
right. And it's
realistic.
needed.
Mhm.
Roof, maybe, yeah. It's the flat one with rocks on it. It's really weird.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Put rocks on this roof. Hope for the best.
Now, is that the area that was meant to put a second story on one day?
It's a single sky, yeah.
Yeah. When they had built it, they had like set it so they could do a second. floor.
We haven't expanded that project out yet.
No,
We can get that on the capital plan if you like.
Good luck.
nice.
One,
So to your point, Gordon, about the maple shade necessary, however, we know how it goes. Should we try one or two more reasonably priced priorities?
I mean, I think the urgency at Maple Shade, because you have newer roofs on their peaked
Yeah.
roofs, And then you have flat roofs where they're struggling. It's
All right, well, let's have that discussion then.
Okay,
So number 2, maple shade roof.
yep.
Let's talk about that because maybe it's a bonding situation. The problem is. We have our big project coming in next year.
Right. I mean, I think obviously 2.7 million, that's a bonding situation.
Yeah.
That's not something they're gonna put in their budgeted capital budget. That's gonna have to go through bonding if they do it.
And then they budget for the bond within the operating.
Right, in term, yes, correct.
So that just increases and decreases the pool of money.
Yep, good point.
Notes.
And these prices have been adjusted for foolishness happening out there right now?
Just as for contingency and inflation, yes.
Yes.
We're hoping that the foolishness ends hopefully within the next few months.
So
Some
birch and roof, maple shade roof. The Mountain View prefers the office renovation over electrical.
Electrical. I was gonna ask too.
that's a great question. That came.
We pulled that out.
Correct.
Yeah, I bet that would come above it.
That's a hard, I didn't ask that question because this came from when Bruce and Elaine met. That's how they had ranked them.
They were combined then though.
Correct, they were combined.
But still, the office renovation was before the others.
Is
The office renovation, I think, is just as you said, it's a safety issue.
Yeah.
And so, it's hard to get past that piece. Yes, from a maintenance standpoint, the electrical is significant because when you have repairs that are needed, getting parts is challenging. And so if you were to ask DPW, they're gonna bump the electrical
I would
up.
almost bump
Yeah.
that up.
I would too, I think.
But
Is that part of the AC unit? Is the upgrade,
it would handle the AC units.
right, but if not if we weren't doing the AC units, would that be not as big of an upgrade?
Like with the price drop.
Correct.
I don't believe so, because I had asked Mr. Fenny to break it out as 2 separate
Yeah.
projects, and so that's what he did.
Okay.
He just separated it out. But I think, the building will be ready for those,
Right.
but the whole building will be upgraded to
Yeah.
level of service that it's not seen.
Which I really think that's a worthwhile investment, especially as the only one left. Not to have that all, with all the electrical issues we've dealt with.
Critical.
Number 3.
Okay.
We can check maybe with Bruce
Yep.
on that in
Yep.
terms of he's not gonna have one way or the other on the office. It really would be Elaine, I
Be
suppose.
Elaine, yeah.
So maybe just run it by her, and if
Yep.
she's that adamant against it, we could. We could talk about it with the council too, but
Now, the other elementary
Don't leave her
schools,
out.
they don't have, like Meadowbrook's got, their office isn't right near the door, right?
They
That
also
has-
have the renovation as well. They have not
Have
put
it
it as
in-
high a priority.
Okay,
As you can see, if you look up at Meadowbrook,
yeah,
it's out a year.
next year.
right.
And so, yeah.
And they want to be flipping,
Basically, what the renovation is, yes, they would put most of their administrative staff where they have a workroom and conference room. And-
Sightline.
yeah,
So you have a direct sight
all
line.
right, yeah,
Now with Meadowbrook, you also have new vestibules.
right.
All our buildings, so that anybody who might be watching, all of them have cameras. And so we do have cameras on the outside, we have cameras on the inside. However, there just is that physical barrier.
This one is a double buzz.
Yeah. Meadowbrook is a,
Yeah.
Buzz, but they all have.
they do more for heating efficiency, which that's a
Is a relative term.
stretch term, yeah.
Especially the maple shade is what I'm.
Because you have gas.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the holes aren't.
Yeah.
Okay, that's 3.
You were, I think, looking at the redesign.
Parking lot for
Yeah.
4.
And so we fit all the schools, right?
High school, yeah.
Put 5 and perfect.
Office renovation. 5.
High school though is, yeah, high school doesn't have, because they're looking at a big project, so.
Yeah, right. District wide is the turf. Yeah, so I would say renovation and then the turf. If we're gonna start talking about CPC funds for the turf.
Mhm.
We'll bring it into the discussion, but if lower down doesn't. Talking next year, maybe.
Turf is 6.
And then the interior office renovation, and that you become 7.
5.
Yeah, I think you went. So I have Birchland ballasted 1. 2 is the Maple Shade roof.
Mhm.
3 is the Mountain View electrical upgrade. 4 is the Meadowbrook redesign. 5 interior office renovation. 6 is turf.
Turf, okay.
Okay.
And they were moving,
So AC would be 7,
just moving.
or just take that off.
I don't know, are you moving AC out or you?
I mean, we can leave it on there and have the discussion and that it's there, but I mean, for me, district-wide, low priority. Ongoing. Just such a huge number. What we have works.
And it's a huge number, albeit it's uncomfortable, but it's a huge number given how many months out of the year it will be utilized.
Hey,
Yes.
Days.
Do you want me to
Necessity.
go through that again and then?
Yeah, please.
Get a vote? Okay. Number 1 is the Birchland Park ballasted flat roof repair.
Mhm.
Number 2 is the is the Maple Shade roof replacement. The flat sections of the roof. Number 3 is the Mountain View electrical upgrade. Number 4 is the Meadowbrook parking lot redesign. Number 5 is the Mountain View interior office renovation. Number 6 is a district-wide replacement of the synthetic turf at the high school. Number 7 is the Mountain View rooftop AC.
Well, you see what we have here is the capital plan, so it's a 5-year plan.
I understand that part.
Yep. It's $25 million over 5 years.
I know any of it, things wide. But we'll try.
Okay.
You want me to rephrase that from the motion or?
You can just refer to as
Refer to as.
discussed or presented, yeah.
All right. So I move that we accept the ELPS 5-year capital plan as proposed by Mr. Smith.
Motion made by Beth,
Second,
second by Sarah, discussion.
I would just say that I look forward to the conversation. I mean, we were pleasantly surprised last year by the capital planning that went forward, so.
Well, there was federal money last year.
But federal money being spent in one area also means that there's potentially town funds to be spent.
No, we spent them on personnel.
All I'm saying is that
Damn.
positive about conversations going forward.
I look forward to some
Thank
positive
you.
conversations as well.
There
Thank
you
you,
go.
Sarah, for that. I need that sometimes. I appreciate that.
You'll have a motion in a second.
I do. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Superintendent's educator plan.
So in your packets, I won't go through another lengthy presentation with all of you. So I've outlined my educational plan, which always is coordinated and connected to what we're doing as a district. So it incorporates all of our district goals and then takes some of the specifics to a little bit hopefully clearer level for you, and then also puts in some individual goals, namely something that we've been talking about with the district goals, the equity work, and getting that back on track and making sure that not only are we continuing to move on the high leverage recommendations that came out of the equity report, but getting the steering committee back up and running and figuring out more as a community group. What are the next steps? So here's where we are. What are the next steps to keep this work going? And we do have some good things supporting us, not only CLE, but work with DESE and the Mass Association of School Superintendents. They put out a year ago now, but have revised it, a ready guide for districts. And so Ms. Brown and I are going through that. I'm involved in their Wednesday webinar series where once a month they have a webinar series on different elements of how districts can move forward in this work. December 7th, I'll be facilitating that series or that webinar for that Wednesday. So we do some recording this week as part of that. It's be exciting. That'll be on strategy. How you help continue to move a district forward. And one of the things as we look at that work, just to say, and I'll say this, few presentations, the context of your community matters. You need to understand it and you need to work within it in order to keep things moving forward, have some success. So that's one of the individual goals. The other one, obviously, continuing to hopefully move forward and have success with the Mass School Building Authority and feasibility study. That's a long process, as you know, and we're having productive public forums, well attended. The last one was pretty well attended, so we're excited about that. Want to keep that momentum going and keep getting the word out and working with the school building committee members to make some really challenging decisions, but also while we do that, push our design team and say, okay, what else can we do to make this a school that's going to support us well into the future while also being fiscally responsible? Because I think Mr. Mackey said it in one of our meetings. We need a community that's well informed. And when we get to that vote in November of 23, so roughly a year from now, without support of the community, could go back 9 years of work. And so we really need to continue the process of informing the community and making sure that we're answering their questions. And we had good questions the other night. Ms. Julio alluded to, actually directly referenced some of them. And so want to keep answering those. So happy to sit with anybody, discuss this further here as well as with anybody around this plan. And then, I'll be reporting back as we get to the mid-cycle and so forth, working with all of you and the leadership team to try to make this happen. They have an assignment from our last leadership team meeting. If all of what we presented tonight were to happen, what does the LPS look like? We'll see. I'll be able to report back what that vision or visions may be, but then we are going to try to synchronize from there. Okay, so what's our coordinated, synchronized vision from what we're getting back? So be interesting. They were really excited to receive homework. And they got a book, so we're doing yes, book study, which will be good. I forgot to put that in the plan, but we are doing a book study. I can add that to the mid-cycle.
There you go. We should accept the plan.
Yes, please.
Okay. Move to accept the educator evaluation plan for Gordon Smith for the 2022-2023 year.
Motion made by Beth, second by Sarah. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. It carries 4-0.
And the last item of business is a renewal of waivers that we had approved last year for these coming seasons. One in the winter season with wrestling, and then one in the spring season, which will be softball. Mr. McGee couldn't be here this evening, so he's counting on me to break it down. He usually does for all of you. Couple key points. Obviously, that the principals of both high school and middle school are on board, and the coaching staff and athletic directors are supportive of this. Right now, for wrestling, we're projecting possibly 19 wrestlers coming back. I'm sorry, 12 wrestlers coming back. And for softball, we're projecting possibly 19 softball players. Last year, we did not have any 8th grade wrestlers participate. And we did have 5 8th grade softball players participate. The 8th graders can only participate on the lowest level that you have. So that means that if you have a JV level and a ninth grade level, they would only participate at the ninth grade level. In this case right now, we only have JV levels as the lowest level for both sports, so it would be at the JV level.
They only have 19 players for softball total.
That's what they're projecting.
He thinks he's gonna field 2 teams.
That's his hope. That's why the
To
waiver,
get that many eighth graders.
the waiver is important. Yeah,
He's gonna need 11 eighth graders,
well,
right?
A lot.
a lot.
We had 12 and 13 last year and it was really short.
Yeah.
You're tight.
12 and 13, so 25 total, yeah. And we only have 19 now. That's only, 6.
You gonna play again, Molly?
Haven't decided. I
Come on, Molly,
I don't think I'm on that number. I did not go to the meeting, so I do not think I'm on that numbers.
I put you in there. No, I'm just kidding. You may not be in that number. I don't know who's in the number.
So, but does it become problematic if we don't get enough? Because the maximum I see for the allowed waiver would be 15. If we only have one team and we're already at 19, and we can't really approve the waiver.
You can have the waiver and then withdraw it.
If we
If
don't
you
have a
get,
JV.
yeah, if you
That
get.
happen on a-
I don't know. That's a good question in terms of if you don't run a JV, but I think he does want to, and the coaches want to run a JV.
Yeah, Are we realistically gonna get 8
Uh,
eighth graders?
It's been growing, the program
Yeah.
has been growing.
and I think the rec program has
Growing.
been growing and the enthusiasm has been growing.
Molly, yeah.
I feel like there are more kids younger that have been playing than recent. Like we barely could make one team when I was younger, and a lot of the kids behind us have had 2 rec teams.
Huh. Per year?
Like 2 rec teams for each age group.
Wow. Cool.
And we know that there's a lot of excitement to have softball fields at
At the high school.
new building.
That too.
Working on it.
That's right. So that-
Okay,
that's advertising to keep the program going.
cool.
Yeah.
So we'll need a motion for the 2 waivers, please.
No.
Come on, Amy. Read this. Amy, read this.
I don't want, okay.
I approve.
Next.
Approved MIA waiver for softball and wrestling as presented.
The MIAA waiver for softball and wrestling as presented.
That was so eloquent of you. Motion made by Amy, seconded by Beth. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. That motion carries 4-0. Okay, we're at the end. Mr. Mackey, thanks for your time tonight. Appreciate it. Molly, thank you for being here, your words and
Your wisdom.
wisdom. And just a reminder that National Honor Society induction ceremony is tomorrow, 6 o'clock.
I hear it's gonna go quick, because there's a movie, right?
Yes, it's 7:15.
Elks playing at 7:15 in Enfield, so.
Oh, soccer banquets at 7.
Wow.
Got moved because of that.
I'm coming from work, so.
Oh, you'll get there.
Right.
Unfortunately, I teach on Tuesday night, so first one I'll miss,
Oh, bummer.
which is a bummer.
Okay, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Sarah,
Second.
second by Amy. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries 4-0. We are adjourned. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.